Good afternoon. My name is John Phillips. I serve as the Global Vice President for Reproductive Medicine for Cryoport. Cryoport Systems has been in business over 20 years. We're a publicly traded company with over 32 supply chain centers globally. Our focus is strictly on life sciences, supporting reproductive medicine, biopharma, and animal health markets. For the past 10 years, we provided cryogenic logistics services to the reproductive medicine market in shipping embryos, eggs, and sperm all over the world. Today, we'd like to share a little of our knowledge and best practices when considering moving reproductive material from clinic to clinic. Hopefully, you'll take away some information that will be useful in your day-to-day practice. It's understandable that the idea of transporting reproductive material can be overwhelming. The valuable cargo that we're transporting has to be handled with care from clinic to clinic. It has to be safe and it has to be handled securely. The consistent and precise handling and storage of these biologic materials during distribution is integral to their success. The primary goal for what we do in shipping reproductive material is to mitigate risk for these products while they're in transit. But there are a number of factors that play a part in a successful shipment. Contamination, environmental changes, tracking discrepancies, and other inconsistencies during transport, such as all the different personnel that touch it. All of these things can compromise the integrity of the reproductive material and its ultimate safety and efficacy. We use science in the clinic, we use science in the lab. Why not look at science in our logistics efforts? We think there are three areas that need consideration when shipping valuable materials. First is packaging, and it's not just the doer. The doers that we get today, the manufacturers do a great job. They produce quality products, but this also includes packaging both external and internal. External being when we get ready to place our doer into the container, the outer container, does it have absorptive material in it to absorb shock in case it's dropped? And in case it's dropped, and it's going to be bounced around anyway in these transits, what about my internal packaging? Have I done everything I can? Have I done my due diligence in ensuring that it is secure internal to the tank? The second element that should be considered are the data points that we gather specific to the shipper performance and this entire logistics journey. This information provides us the ability to make in-transit decisions to avoid potential costly delays. Finally, it's important to carefully review the logistics partners that we use. We would recommend taking an agnostic approach, and by that I mean this. There are a number of companies out there that do a really, really good job. There are some that ship really well in some parts of the world. If you're shipping internationally, then that same company might not perform as well as others in other parts of the world. So again, be careful, do a very judicious job when you select your partners there. As an industry, we go to great lengths to follow quality processes, and the best practices in our clinics and labs are very critical to that. We do this to achieve our desired outcomes. Ultimately, those outcomes result in a pregnancy and successful birth for our patients. And we do this with great pride. But all too often, we don't provide the same due diligence when shipping these precious materials from one clinic to another. Above all, when considering the logistics part of our business, again, you've heard it before, it's important to mitigate as much risk as possible for these products while they're in transit. This can be called the chain of compliance. In the chain of compliance, it's important to look at the impact of a shipment on a doer. In order to get optimal performance, we need to measure a variety of elements. What is the performance history of the tank? Do I know that? Do I have documentation to that? Has it always achieved the desired hold time? Do I know that? And again, do I have documentation? Do I have line of sight on the compatibility of the shipper and the accessories? And by that, I mean serialization. And you say, why is serialization important? Well, if I have a serial number on the tank and its corresponding accessories are serialized with the same number, then at the end of the transport, if all of those still match up, then I know it hasn't been tampered with. But if I have a serialized zip tie that holds the vapor plug or the lid onto the tank, and I realize at the end of the journey that there is another zip tie on there that's not serialized, chances are something's happened to that and it's been tampered with. Again, this is chain of compliance. How often should I requalify my shippers? Shipper requalification is to ensure that the tank is going to perform for you every time at the way that you want it to perform. This is really important when shipping these kind of materials that are so precious. We have to make sure that we do our due diligence to inspect, to clean, to qualify these shippers before they go out again. That is really an incredible or a very important part of the success of our shipments. And what about the data loggers? Do we have data loggers in the tank that we're measuring critical data points? These things bounce around just like the tanks do. Are we recalibrating them after every use? We should. I want to make sure that those data loggers are measuring the information that I'm trying to gather in an accurate way. If I don't recalibrate them every time, then how do I know that's going to be accurate data? And how often should I clean the tanks? Probably one of the biggest questions we get. How should I clean the tank? Well, there's a lot of ways to do it. Some good and some not so good. The manufacturers, MVE gives great guidance to that. But in the end, the important piece is, do I have a methodology that is vetted, maybe that's third-party lab tested, that reduces biological contaminants? I want to make sure that that tank is as clean and free of contamination as possible. And we all know over the last year, we're all clean, we're clean freaks anymore, right? We probably all have bottles of hand sanitizer in our desk drawers and in our cup holders in our car. And again, clean sterilization is part of our vocabulary now. So those are very, very important pieces that we have to consider. Equally important is the collection of critical data points that we measure during this transit life cycle. Chain of compliance, that is the chain of custody, the chain of condition, requires that we have eyes on the doer while it's in transit. This should be in near real time. There are some data loggers that collect performance metrics, but you can only download the information post-shipment. Should a temperature excursion occur during transit, you'll only learn of the incident after the shipment is complete. Unfortunately, by then, it's usually too late. Having near real time affords you the ability to intervene with the courier to address any anomaly that might be occurring. And again, this is risk mitigation. All of these items that we've discussed are really outcomes of 20 years of providing cold chain logistics. I would tell you that these lessons learned have not come easily, but nonetheless, they are lessons learned. Hopefully, you have gathered some from us, some tips and ideas, but I have some further good news here, and I want to share that with you. This past summer, the International Organization of Standardizations released ISO 21973. 21973 is really the first standard to address the specific issues of transporting cellular material for therapeutic use. And its focus is on risk mitigation, it's on quality systems and processes, and it's also on the chain of custody, identity, and condition, all of which we've talked about today, which makes up the chain of compliance. While this is directed at biopharmaceutical, we think it's a foretaste of things to come for reproductive medicine. and as you will see, addresses some of the same points we've just discussed. It includes documentation for all stages of transportation, including storage and handling. It addresses verification and the validation process. It looks at shipping container requirements, such as the performance of the container, and it also addresses cleaning processes and protocols. It looks at unique identifiers, such as serialization, and it looks at a real critical piece, which is traceability. And finally, it does look at business processes for operational structure. Things like personnel training. Are all of my teammates, are they all trained in the business processes that we're putting in place? Do I have a quality management system in place? Are my SOPs fully vetted? And are they vetted in all locations? Are they consistent across the enterprise? And of course, true to form, documentation at every phase. So in summary, we think that these things are going to be coming to a city near you. We think it's important, and smart money is to embrace these early and start looking at ways to implement them into our day-to-day activities. You can see there's a number of things like implementing a compliance platform that we've talked about, looking at data gathering and all these metrics so that we can analyze how to achieve continuous improvement. It's putting into place a validated cleaning process. It's looking at all the elements of traceability. I think you'll see in the future a consistent trend toward product security to make them tamper-proof. Again, risk mitigation. And I think technology is really going to help us drive that to ensure that we mitigate as much risk as possible. Well, that's all I have today. Thanks for joining. My name is John Phillips. I'm with Cryoport. Our booth is open. If you would love to stop and chat with some of the folks there, they'd love to visit with you. Thanks again and have a great day.